household linkage, a geographic linkage, and a linkage to a lot of other syndicated data sources that also track consumer behavior within Nielsen, beyond Nielsen, we can then understand a little bit more about these households in terms of the different factors that I had described earlier. So just to kind of give you an example, and I've taken a lot of slides and I boiled this down to like two or three slides for your benefit. But essentially what we did was for a major consumer electronics retailer several years ago, they had asked us to take a look at their customer. They had asked us to take a look at the marketplace, and through the use of primary research and research on their customer audience is to really understand what the potential is for products and services for consumer electronics, for their particular niche. And they also wanted us to understand how their customer compared to the industry at large. And where are they missing the mark? What segments are they attracting? What other segments should they be spending more money on in their advertising and their messaging, as well as how they stock their shelves? And what we did was, through the use of our industry panel information and other external data sources and information that this company was able to provide, we actually profiled this information using PRISM segmentation. And from that, we developed a custom segmentation schema for this particular client. And so looking at it in a perceptual way in terms of the affluence from left to right, and in terms of interest in consumer electronics and interactive technology, we were able to boil the ocean down into 8 manageable groups, 8 target groups. And each group was defined based on the different dimensions that were included in our analysis. And here you see groups 1 and 2 are very distinct segments. They have high affluence and also interest in consumer electronics. And then you have to the lower left 2 groups that aren't interested in electronics, neither do they have the disposable income to purchase electronics. So it makes it very important to understand that dynamic so we know where to allocate our dollars and what to focus our advertising and growth strategies on. Then you've got a couple of emerging groups there. To the left, you've got group 5, for example, and those are the younger generation, which is a very important growth vehicle for this particular company. They don't have money today, but they will have money later on, and the interest in consumer electronics is very high. Then you've got some in between. So that's the whole idea behind the use of segmentation and how it can kind of fit into this. So by understanding who these segments are, we can then define ways to better attract them, find and locate them. So in group 1, they're wealthy middle-aged families. This is one of the 8. And I'll just kind of give you an idea as to what information we can learn about these groups based on the research. We can look at the size of the group. We can look at their demographic composition in terms of the level of influence and where they actually live, their education levels. We also look at the types of products that these people would typically buy and what their propensities are to buy other types of products that they may not currently buy through the research. But we found that these are other products that certainly fall within the range of the target that we're going after. And another way of looking at it is to really look at channel preferences, which was very important to this particular client. Where do these people spend their money? What are the different channels, given all the options that are available, are these people most propense to buy and or spend their money for consumer electronics? And as you can see there, we were able to kind of boil this down and give this client a very good perspective on that particular segment of the research. Other insights, of course, were also noted as a result of the analysis. So we did this for each and every group, and from that, we were able to then develop a very clear strategy on how to not only locate where these people are, but also how to market to them, types of products and services we should offer that appeal to those groups. Now, there's another way of segmenting, and we like to use this because of all of the changes that are going on right now with regard to the demographic composition of the marketplace. There's a lot of uncertainty out there as to, just how to market to some of these emerging segments of the audience. So what we try to do is to use this in conjunction with other segmentation analyses that we do, further supported by research, and technology, as well as the use of the census information to help us to really capture a little bit more on information on the events and the lifestyles and the values that have shaped people's lives based on where they are in the entire spectrum in terms of when they were born and what period of time that covers. And we had found that through this process that there's 7 actual groups or generations that need to be kind of focused on in terms of helping marketers better understand how the events and the lifestyles have shaped their views, have shaped their purchase behaviors, have shaped their response to media as well as technology, so we can make better decisions on how to message to them, how to tie them to opportunity. And here's the 7 cohorts that we have actually identified through our analysis and research. And as you can see there, you have your authority figures, ages 63 up, and then your group 1 at the bottom, and it goes right up to Generation Z. But within that spectrum, we've actually had to break down the boomers into 2 separate groupings, because we had found in our research that there's actually 2 separate groups that describe the cohort within the boomers. And so they're very distinct groups in terms of what has shaped their events, what has shaped their values, and so we wanted to break that down as we did with Generation Y, and I'll explain that in more detail in a second. And as you can see here, the birth rates have obviously gone down quite a bit over the years, and that's what we continue to see as a trend, at least at this point in time. And at the same time, you see the actual population within each of the different groups being rather fragmented in terms of the number of people that are actually that have been born during that period of time. And so you can see that it's not an even kill. The opportunities aren't consistent across the board. So really understanding what has shaped the views of the boomers versus the Gen Xers, the Gen Zs, et cetera, is going to be very important for marketers moving forward in terms of how they respond to various forms of media and products and things of that nature. Now, I'm just going to give you some examples here of the generational cohort, some of the one-liners, and I just want to bring these to your attention. If you look at your countercultures, your early boomers from 1946 to 1955, we have found that there's a big difference between that cohort and the late boomers from 56 to 64. Let's kind of talk about it a little bit. The G2, the countercultures, early boomers, these people were part of the Vietnam War. At that time, you had a lot of civil strife going on within our country, as well as across the world in many cases. And these people were just getting exposed to TV. In fact, black and white TV was new technology to them, to this particular group. So that's kind of formed a whole different mindset when you look at those people versus the Brady boomers, the G3s, which were late boomers, who now, in this particular era, what you have is a more emphasis on the family. You have a stagflation that's going on economically, and now is when the marketers started to use the mass channel marketing to attract these particular households. And they also had access to cable TV and things of that nature. So it was quite of a different set of influences during that particular era than what you had with the countercultures. And then you've got the indie vanguard, which is what we call the Gen X's. And the Gen Xers is a very interesting segment. Now, we know that it's kind of wedged in between the echo boomers and the baby boomers in terms of the size of the segment, but it's very interesting because here is when you have the first group that's really seen all technology and all of the changes in technology through the various forms of technology that are being offered today. And also what you see here is a multicultural mix, much different than what we saw in the early years. And so it's going to be very different in terms of how you speak to these this particular segment, households in this segment, versus what you had in the earlier years. So this is something that's really raising the attention of a lot of marketers in the marketplace. Now, just to kind of give you an idea as to how they compare, when you look at prism profiles of the G2s and G3s, what you can see there is quite a stark contrast in terms of what segments are represented by the G2s, which is represented in the yellow spike, as well as in contrast to the G2s, the G3s. And as you can see there, there's quite of a different contrast that you have there between those two cohorts when you look at the prism. Now, how retailers are responding and to this is quite dramatic. And what we're seeing here is that, first of all, from a marketing perspective, they're adjusting the product portfolios to fit current and emerging trends in consumer demand with a fragmented marketplace. We're seeing that quite a bit. There's a whole reshifting in the size of the package, the type of package, the amount of portions that are actually being offered in their packaging than what we may be seeing today. And it's starting to be a trend across the landscape in that particular segment. They're also seeking new revenue growth streams as families are stagnant or decline in relative importance. As the family size shrinks, you still have to have a way to make revenue, so you're looking at other growth alternatives or other growth options that they can tap into. And also, multicultural marketing is no longer an option. That's something that the retailer community, the retail and the consumer packaged goods community are starting to really tap into, and how to blend all of their advertising or messaging to fit a multicultural niche and not necessarily what they might have done in the past. And also learning to market to the older segments. There's a lot of different needs, a lot of different services that the older generation will need. And now how do we market, how do we tap into that, and how do we use that to grow our business? And then the real estate investment impacts. From a real estate standpoint, what we're seeing here is that there's a great deal of collaboration at this point, unlike what I've ever seen in the past. A great deal of collaboration between the marketer, the media and the research people, as well as and the finance people, in addition to the real estate developer. So it's no longer an independent decision. That research has to be an important component to the overall investment decision. So without research and really understanding what's going on in the marketplace, creates a little bit of a vacuum here and a little bit of uncertainty. And also, what's happening is that a lot of retail companies, developers, retailers, et cetera, they're starting to revisit their concepts. They're trying to understand if their investments, if their properties are in line with the changes in the demographic and the composition of that demographic, short-term, long-term. And does it make sense to continue to pump money into this investment property, or to look at other ways to reconfigure it to fit the needs, short-term, long-term, that occur? So that's another very important part of it. What we're also seeing here is that a lot of developers are starting to shift their concept into other growth streams. They're starting to reinvent the concept, and that applies to not only retailers but also restaurant chains, et cetera. And in some cases, what we're finding is that there may be opportunities to close stores or to sell off stores to go to someone who has a concept that best fits the market. And also, they're reallocating their floor space and merchandise display to respond to changing trends. We're finding that some of the big box retailers are starting to carve out niches within their footprint to appeal to different cohorts or sectors of the economy that they feel will help them grow. So we see also an emergence of new concepts and a lot of M&A activity. And what that means is that we're starting to work with a lot of clients on developing brand new concepts that right from ground floor, identifying the segment in the audience they want to go after, and then help me build a concept around that so I can then appeal to that particular growth stream. That's essentially what's going on within the real estate investment community in a nutshell. So I appreciate your time and attention.
Joe, thank you. As a client of Nielsen, I can speak firsthand to the impact of your type of analysis